Welcome in, everyone, to Lively Lewis Stories.
That's right, we're back with even more awesome adventures with Levi and Ivy.
Set your storytime meter to fun and get ready to join the Lively Lewis crew.
All you need is your imagination and...
Off we go!
I can't wait to see where our story takes us today.
Have you ever wanted to get more Lively Lewis in your life?
Well, we've got you covered.
Grab an adult and zoom over to livelylewisshop.com.
Or just click on the link in our show notes.
Enough about that. Let's get to today's super Lively Lewis story.
Mom, called Levi as he walked into the house after school. Mom, are you here? Yeah, I am right here, answered Levi's mom as she walked into the living room. How was school? But she didn't have to wait long for an answer because the look on Levi's face said it all. Not great. Levi had been having trouble at school recently with a few older boys who were not being the nicest to him on the soccer field at recess. They often wouldn't let him play at all, and when they did, they wouldn't pass to him and would run plays that excluded Levi from the action. Are those boys still giving you problems at recess? Asked Levi's mom as she gave her son a hug. Your dad and I will contact your principal and teacher again. We'll do whatever we can to help you out. We're all on your team, buddy. Those words of encouragement and a great big hug were just what Levi needed as his mom could feel his stress from the day melt away when she showed how much she cared for him. Levi dropped his backpack on the ground and hugged his mom tight. She could tell he was crying and brought him over to the couch to sit down. Just as she was about to ask him what happened that day specifically, Ivy walked in through the door, and she didn't look much better than Levi. Mom, said Ivy before the tears started to roll down her cheeks as well. Oh no, sweetie, what's wrong? Asked Ivy's mom as she opened her arms wide, letting Ivy know there was room in her big hug for one more kiddo that needed it. Ivy hugged her mom, wiped her eyes, and began to tell her a story about what happened that day. And Ivy didn't need to ask why Levi was crying. She already knew the reason. I was at recess today, and I was jumping rope with some friends when all of a sudden I heard some shouting coming from the soccer field, said Ivy as she began to tell her story. I ran over because I knew Levi was playing soccer, and I wanted to make sure everyone was okay. You're very sweet to do that, Ivy, said her mom, so proud of her daughter's caring nature. When I got to the field, I saw Levi standing alone by the fence while two of the older boys, who were clearly the team captains, were arguing back and forth, continued Ivy until Levi interrupted, speaking for the first time since he got home. They were arguing over me, said Levi. Were they arguing over which one could have you on their team? Said Levi's mom, hopeful that Levi was finally being included at recess. No, just the opposite, answered Levi. They were arguing because neither of them wanted me on their team. Well, that's just silly, added Levi's mom. You're one of the best players in your age group. You were the top goal scorer last year and everything. I know, but since they play in the age group just above me, they think they're the best soccer players in the whole town, said Levi. They don't have any room for me on that field. Maybe I'll just stop trying to play with them. But I love playing soccer so much. It would make me sad to give that up at recess. Levi's mom felt terrible. She knew how much Levi loved soccer, and he always had so much fun playing at school until this year. Levi, I don't think that's the answer, said his mom. If you stop playing, then the older kid's bad behavior wins, and we can't have that happen. Then they'll think that they can act like that anytime. This is a moment in time when maybe if you talk with them, you can change the way they behave for the better. And when you do that, you stop them from making anyone else feel the way you're feeling right now. Levi knew his mom was right, but standing up to those older kids wasn't something he felt comfortable doing. And then there was Ivy. Excuse me, did we forget that I was crying when I walked into the house? Asked Ivy. Oh, Ivy, I'm so sorry. You weren't done with your story yet, said her mom, focusing her attention back on Ivy. So, when I saw that Levi was upset, it made me upset, said Ivy. Because even though he can be annoying sometimes, like when he eats the last cookie without telling me, or when he uses my paintbrushes to clean the spokes on his bike, but he's still my brother, and I don't want to see him sad. Levi gave his sister a little smile, so thankful that she was so sweet and caring. I watched Levi standing there all alone against the fence, waiting to play soccer and have fun. And I started to cry, said Ivy. And that's when they showed up. Who? Asked Ivy's mom. This group of girls, one grade above me. I actually thought we were kind of friends. They like to hang out by the soccer field and make bracelets or draw during recess, explained Ivy. But today they were just there to make fun of me, it seemed. Ivy went on to explain that the older girls saw her crying, they called her a crybaby, and that made her feel really bad. I'm not a crybaby, said Ivy. I was crying because Levi looked so sad. I bet they would have done the same thing if someone they cared about was feeling sad. That's a good way to look at it, replied Ivy's mom. Did you tell them that? Ivy just looked down at the ground and shook her head no. She wanted to say those things and tell them that it's not nice to tease people. And how would they feel if they were in her situation? But instead, she just ran off, wanting to be as far away from them as possible so they couldn't tease her anymore. Did you tell your teacher, Ivy? Asked her mom. Again, Ivy just shook her head no. I didn't want to make a big deal out of it, said Ivy, because if I did, my teacher would have made us talk about it, and I don't want to talk to them. But talking things out is the best way to resolve problems, said Ivy and Levi's mom. If you don't deal with the issue, then it can get worse and worse. It can make you stop playing a sport that you love, or it can make you run away and hide your true feelings. Ivy's mom went on to explain to her daughter that just like in Levi's situation, if she talked to those girls, maybe she would have helped them to see that the way they were acting was not very nice. She then told both her kids that it is important to let your emotions out, like they were both doing at home, and to never bottle them up and forget about them. Because over time, those strong emotions will build up, and that's no fun at all, which is why they had to talk to those kids at school before anything else happened. She also told Levi and Ivy that even though they may think they're hiding how they feel, that was not the case at all. You're both usually so confident and happy, but lately it seems like you're more quiet and down, said Levi and Ivy's mom. Your dad and I don't want to see you like that, and we know that you don't want to feel like that. We've given you some strategies to use, but unless you feel confident to stand up to the kids that are making you feel bad, then your dad and I will have to call the school again. Levi and Ivy both looked up at each other. They really wanted to try and solve their problems by themselves, but they knew it wouldn't be easy. But situations like this could come up at any time in their lives, and they knew they had to be prepared to handle them. Knowing, of course, that their parents, and in this case their teachers and principals, were always nearby to help. Mom, can you and Dad give Ivy and I a little time to think about how we could handle these situations? Asked Levi. We sure can, said Levi and Ivy's mom. How about you two take a walk? A nice long walk and some fresh air always helps me clear my head so I can focus on an important task. Levi and Ivy knew their mom was right, and they decided to take her advice and walk down the park in the neighborhood. It was one of their favorite places in the world, and if nothing else, they would get to run around a bit, have some fun, and try to put the day behind them for a little bit. We'll be back by dinner time, called out Levi as he and Ivy started out the door. Okay, kids, try to have some fun, and hopefully as your mood changes, you'll be able to think of the best way to deal with your individual situations at school, said their mom as she walked out to the backyard. Levi and Ivy quickly started off down their street. At first, they weren't talking very much, just looking up at the sky, counting clouds drifting by, and listening to the birds in the trees. Then out of nowhere, Levi said, I'm sorry you cried today. It was all because of me. You don't have to apologize at all, Levi, Ivy began as she stopped and looked at her brother. If anyone has to apologize, it's those soccer boys who were mean to you and those girls who are calling me names. We didn't do anything wrong. Levi smiled, knowing what a great sister and friend he had in Ivy. That makes a lot of sense, said Levi. Maybe if you and I talk to those kids together tomorrow at school, then we could let them know just how bad they're making us feel. Strength in numbers. I think it's what it's called, answered Ivy. I think the two of us together could do the trick. Wow, this walk is helping us out already. Levi and Ivy smiled and continued on the park. They were happy that they were already thinking of ways to resolve the issues they were having at school. And as a reward for their smart thinking, they were going to treat themselves with a few rides on the zip line and a slide down their favorite tube slide. But before they could reach the park, they stumbled upon a hedgerow that they had never seen before. Wow! What is that? Asked Ivy as she stood in awe of the gigantic wall of evergreens. Do you remember seeing that here before? Right at the entrance to the park, asked Levi. No, and I definitely think I'd remember seeing something so beautiful and enormous, replied Ivy. The hedgerow seemed to stretch on forever and looked completely impossible to go through. The thick green pine needles formed an almost solid living wall in front of them. However, they were curious as to what it was. why it was there, and if it was possible to see what was on the other side. Levi and Ivy, both being quite curious, decided to take a look through the millions of pine branches. That's when Levi said, "Do you see that?" Ivy knew exactly what he was referring to and called back, "A giant iron gate?" They didn't even need to think a second about what to do next. The two adventurous kids each reached out a hand and touched the gate. The cold, solid iron looked ancient, and both Levi and Ivy never would have imagined in a million years what would happen next. Gates are sometimes meant to keep people out of places. They're sometimes meant not to move and act as a barrier or obstacle to prevent people from moving forward. Well, not in this case. As soon as Levi and Ivy's small hands touched the gate, it swung open wide, as if it was waiting for them, revealing a most fantastic and magical-looking garden. "Levi, I don't think this is part of the park," said Ivy with a bit of a twinkle in her eye. The new world was different and unique, but that's what made it intriguing and exciting. "Do you think we should take a closer look?" asked Levi with the same twinkle in his eye. "I mean, as long as we don't walk too far from the gate, then I think we'll be okay," answered Ivy, already taking a few steps past the most amazing collection of flowers she had ever seen. "I think you made a great choice," said a voice from behind Ivy. "Thank you, Levi. I feel like this place looks pretty harmless, and if we just stay for a second, I don't think anything too crazy will happen," answered Ivy. Yeah, I agree, Ivy, but I didn't say anything to you," said Levi, all of a sudden looking a bit nervous. So if Levi hadn't said anything, then who was Ivy answering? And where were they? It was after hearing Levi's response that Ivy began to question her decision to walk through the gate into the garden. They both spun around, looking this way and that, trying to figure out where and who the voice had come from. "If you want to find an answer, you have to look both high and low," said the voice. "What does that mean?" asked Levi, still searching for the voice. "I think we need to change our perspective and look down too," answered Ivy as she stared in amazement at where the voice was coming from. Until that moment, she and Levi had only been looking at what was in their eye line. But once Ivy looked toward the ground, that's when she saw a bunch of brilliant pink peonies. And underneath those fantastic flowers sat a very wise-looking tortoise. "I can't believe what I'm seeing," exclaimed Levi as he walked towards the giant tortoise. And if the fact that the tortoise wasn't talking enough, he was also wearing a little derby hat and a small pair of glasses. "I know. I always get that reaction when people first meet me," said the tortoise with a smile. "I'm a friend, though, and I have been expecting you." "You've been expecting us?" asked Ivy, sounding quite shocked. "You knew we were going to show up here? How?" "Well, this is a very special place. A place that only makes its presence known when someone, or some two in your case, needs my help," said the tortoise. "First of all, before we go any further, my name is Elden, and this is the Garden of Friends." Elden then went on to explain that the magical garden that surrounded them all was filled with many plants and creatures whose only goal that day was to make those around them feel respected, heard, and understood. But not all the creatures and plants acted that way all the time. So that's where the lessons can be learned and progress can be made. "Wow, what a wonderful place," said Levi, looking around. "I wish the soccer field at recess was like this." "And that is exactly the reason you're here," Elden said quickly. "And because of those girls that made you cry today, Ivy, you're both here to learn a lesson about creating boundaries in your lives and making sure they're respected. By gaining this new courage, you will be able to help yourselves, others around you, and even the people that sometimes don't respect or care for your feelings. You can do that by showing them how their actions and words make you and others feel." Levi and Ivy knew this was just the place for them. They were ready to learn all they could. Before dinner time, of course. Elden assured them that around every corner in the garden there were lessons to learn. They just had to keep their eyes open and always remember to look high and low. "I'm here to give you a challenge," Elden began. "The challenge is broken up into 4 parts. Each part will have you helping a different garden friend to learn either courage, respect, clarity, or empathy. And as you help them, you will both learn from their experiences and apply what you learn in those situations you're dealing with at school. With all this knowledge, you'll be confident enough to stand up for yourselves. This sounds great. I love helping others, said Levi. Me too, echoed Ivy. Let's get to that first quest. Elden pointed Levi and Ivy down a path filled with thousands of bright and colorful flowers. As Levi and Ivy made their way down the path, they saw a small colony of bumblebees buzzing around a patch of sunflowers. Normally, that should have made the bees very happy to be so close to all those lovely pollen-producing flowers, but they all look sad. What's wrong? Asked Levi to one of the little bees. So nice of you to ask, buzzed the little bee. You see that magnificent hive over there? Well, up until 10 minutes ago, that was our hive. But now I guess it belongs to those ants. When Levi and Ivy looked over, they saw quite a magnificent hive. But instead of it buzzing with bees, it was overrun with ants. Well, if that's your hive, why don't you go take it back? Asked Ivy. Because those ants are older than us and we don't want to start any trouble, said the little bee in a quiet voice. But if you don't tell them how upset you feel that they took your hive, then they could do it again to another bunch of bees. Do you want that to happen? Asked Levi. Yes, just imagine another bunch of bees feeling the same way you do right now, added Ivy. Once the little bees heard that, their minds changed. They owed it to every little bee in that garden to stand up to those ants and tell them to never take something that's not theirs again. You need some courage, cheered Levi. You need to stand up for yourself because you're worth it. And by doing that, you have the opportunity to make someone better by showing them the right way to act. As Levi heard the words he was saying, he couldn't help but think that it was pretty good advice that he could have used earlier that day at the soccer field at recess. The bees all seemed quite motivated by the words Levi spoke. They rallied together, got up their courage, and flew over to the hive to take back what was theirs. However, the ants were not used to being treated or spoken to that way. They were used to barging in, taking what they wanted, and being left alone. But now they were being held accountable for their actions, learning that the things they did affected others around them in a negative way. After hearing from the bees, the ants apologized for making them feel disrespected and uncared for. Then, as the ants retreated from the hive, promising never to do anything like that again, a flower seemed to bloom out of nowhere right in front of Levi and Ivy. As the petals of the flower opened up, they revealed a shiny golden token. On the shiny coin was the word courage. Levi grabbed the coin. You've done it, exclaimed Elden. You've completed your first quest. You helped the bees get their courage back, and in doing so, they helped the ants see how wrong they were for mistreating others in the garden. Congratulations. Only 3 quests left to complete. Ivy was so proud of Levi and was hoping she could take the lead on the next quest. As they continued down the garden path, following Elden past tall trees, cascading vines, and endless rows of berry bushes, they heard a rustling. As they looked down toward the ground, a little paw, then another, stuck out from underneath one of the bushes. It didn't take Ivy long to realize it was a raccoon popping out to say hello. Well, not quite. She was popping out because she needed some help. Hi, little friend. How can we help you? Asked Ivy. The little raccoon wiped a tear from her eye and looked up at Ivy, unsure and nervous. Oh, no, I couldn't ask for your help, said the little raccoon. You'd probably just call me a baby anyway. I would never say that, declared Ivy, kneeling down to get close to the scared-looking raccoon. I know what it feels like to be called a baby for expressing your emotions, and I know how badly it can hurt your feelings. The little raccoon's ears perked up, and she immediately felt comfortable with Ivy. So comfortable, in fact, that she began to share her story. The raccoon had been wandering through the garden earlier, and a fox, who she thought was her friend, decided to make fun of her when she stubbed her paw on a tree root that was sticking out of the ground. I was crying and calling for my mom, and that fox said I was being a baby, said the raccoon. He said it was no big deal and that I should walk it off. I thought we were friends. I can't believe he didn't even try to help me. Well, what did you say to him? Asked Ivy. The raccoon just looked down at the ground and shook her head. I didn't say anything, she replied. I just limped away and hid under that berry bush. Why? What should I have said? You should have told the fox that those were your emotions and no one else's. If you wanted to cry, you had every right, and that you were sure there were times when he had cried too, said Ivy. You should have also said that his actions made you feel bad because you thought you were friends, and friends are supposed to be there to pick you up when you're feeling down. And as Ivy heard the words she was saying, she couldn't help but think that it was pretty good advice that she could have used earlier that day when she was watching Levi on the soccer field. The little raccoon seemed motivated by the words Ivy spoke. She knew Ivy was right and set off to find that fox, who happened to not be very far away enjoying a nap in the sun. The raccoon told the fox about her emotions and how important it is to get them out. Also, how no one should make you feel bad about crying or feeling scared. However, the fox was not used to being treated or spoken to that way. He was used to saying what he wanted and not being told one way or another how it made others feel. But now he was being held accountable for his actions, learning that the things he did affected the others around him in a negative way. The fox apologized after hearing from the little raccoon, how she felt made fun of and how she would never expect a friend to treat her that way. The fox apologized to the little raccoon, reassuring his friend that he would never react to her emotions in that way again, or any other creature's emotions for that matter. And as she did, a flower seemed to bloom out of nowhere right in front of Levi and Ivy. As the petals of the flowers opened, they revealed a shiny golden token. On the shiny coin was the word respect. Ivy grabbed the coin. "You've done it again," exclaimed Elden. "You've completed your second quest. You helped the little raccoon learn that expressing yourself through emotions is something we all should do. And in doing so, she helped the fox to see how wrong he was for making fun of her crying. Congratulations, only 2 quests left to complete." Completing the first 2 quests made Levi and Ivy feel great. They were excited to help others in the garden. They were feeling the same way they had felt earlier that same day. They knew the Garden of Friends had more lessons to teach them, and they had more friends to help. So they marched on, following Elden. The next garden friend they discovered was a bashful bunny, but as soon as they tried to talk with him, they were interrupted by a very talkative and confident falcon. "So, who are you, and what are you doing here, and why are you trying to talk to my friend?" the falcon squawked as he stood between Levi and Ivy and the bashful bunny. I'm sorry, we didn't mean to make you upset," said Levi. "Yeah, we just wanted to say hello. So, hello." The bashful bunny smiled and tried to say hello until he was interrupted, this time by the falcon. "Well, he says hi and I say hi, and now I guess you two could be on your way," said the falcon. "We're all set, friends. We don't need any more. Isn't that right, bunny?" The bashful bunny just raised his eyebrows as if to say, "Well, that's what you think." "Let's just hold on a second," said Levi to the falcon, trying to be respectful of his friendship with the bunny, but also wanting to make sure that the bunny didn't need help. "Maybe the bunny has something to say. Maybe you could let him talk for himself." "It's okay to speak your mind and be clear with what you want," said Ivy to the bunny. "You don't have to let someone else speak for you." The bashful bunny smiled, seeming motivated by Levi and Ivy's words. He puffed out his chest and squeaked, "I'd like to be friends with them." "What?" exclaimed the falcon, looking shocked, as if he hadn't heard the bunny speak before and was expecting him to say anything but that. But I thought you and I were friends," said the falcon. "We are," began the bunny, but that doesn't mean that I can't have other friends." "Well, you never said any of this before," chirped the falcon. "It's because you never let me talk," said the bunny. "But to be fair, I guess I wasn't that clear and honest with you when you did speak for me. All those times we were approached by other creatures in the garden who wanted to be friends, and you said no. I should have spoken up. How else would you have known how I felt?" "Wow, I'm sorry. I thought you wanted it to be me and you," said the falcon to his bashful bunny friend. "Can you forgive me?" I sure can," said the bunny. "And from now on, I'm going to try and be clear and honest with the way I feel." "That sounds great to me," replied the falcon, giving the bunny a big hug. After seeing how the bunny handled that situation, Levi gave Ivy a big high five. And then, just like the 2 other times before, a flower seemed to bloom out of nowhere right in front of Levi and Ivy. As the petals of the flower opened up, they revealed a shiny golden token. On the shiny coin was the word clarity. Levi grabbed the coin. "You've done it again," exclaimed Elden. "You've completed your 3rd quest. You helped the bashful bunny express himself and learn that honesty is the only way for others to know how you're truly feeling and what you truly want. Congratulations. Only 1 quest left to complete." Levi and Ivy were so proud of themselves for completing 3 quests so quickly, but it also made them feel sad that there was only 1 quest left to complete. It meant their time in the Garden of Friends would be ending soon, but they decided to focus all of their energy on that last quest and worry about going home after they completed it. Elden walked Levi and Ivy over to a small, gentle stream. They each took a seat and looked around to see which new garden friend was in need of some help. They looked and looked until they finally saw a tiny hedgehog nibbling on a gigantic cookie. "Thank you so much for this cookie," mumbled the hedgehog with a mouthful of cookie. "It's delicious." He was talking to a chipmunk who did not look so happy. "That was my last cookie," the chipmunk shouted before she turned and walked away. "I'll make you a new batch someday, I promise," replied the hedgehog, still nibbling on the cookie as he passed by a turtle sitting on the edge of the stream. "Hey, Turtle, sorry to say, but the binoculars I borrowed from you broke," said the hedgehog. "Broke? But you said you take really good care of them. They were a birthday gift," said the turtle, sounding sad. "And I've been waiting here for you for over an hour. You said you'd be here right at 4. "But it's such a nice day. I'm sure you didn't really mind sitting here and waiting a bit longer for me. And about your binoculars, I'm sure I can rustle up a new pair for you by tomorrow. Next week, tops," said the hedgehog as he continued to meander through the garden. Levi and Ivy looked at each other and immediately knew the hedgehog was the last garden friend they had to help. Unfortunately, they knew how to deal with him because they had seen so many people like this before. The kind of people that don't value other people's feelings, things, or time. "Excuse me," called out Ivy. "Can we talk to you for a minute?" "Who? Me? I'm terribly busy and have lots of things to do. I couldn't possibly stop and talk," replied the hedgehog. "Are you on your way to steal another cookie without asking or break another friend's binoculars?" asked Levi. What do you mean?" asked the hedgehog, not used to being talked to that way. "Well, I think you need to learn a little bit about empathy and focusing on others' feelings, not just your own," said Ivy as she motioned for the hedgehog to join them on a fallen log. "Did you ever think how you would feel if you had just made a batch of delicious cookies and there was only one left, and then out of nowhere, a hungry little hedgehog popped up and ate it?" asked Levi. "Well, I guess I never really thought about it that way," answered the hedgehog. "Or did you ever think how you would feel to lend a brand new gift, like maybe a pair of binoculars, to a friend and then never get them back because the friend broke them?" asked Ivy. I guess I never thought of that either," said the hedgehog, now feeling bad about the way he treated his turtle and chipmunk friends. "Oh no. They must be really mad at me, right?" "They may be, but they have a right to," explained Ivy. "You weren't being very nice to them. You totally disregarded their feelings because you weren't being empathetic." "That means seeing things from their point of view," added Levi. "Oh, wow, you're right," replied the hedgehog. "I've got to go talk to my friends, but not before I get a new pair of binoculars and a fresh batch of cookies to drop off." Levi and Ivy helped the little hedgehog with his tasks, and before long, they were watching as he apologized to his friends with gifts in hand. The hedgehog told them how he learned about empathy and how he should have thought how he would feel if he was in their place. The chipmunk and the turtle both thanked their friend, so happy for the positive change that Levi and Ivy had helped him make. And for one final time, a flower seemed to bloom out of nowhere, right in front of Levi and Ivy. As the petals of the flower opened up, they revealed a shiny golden token. On the shiny coin was the word empathy. Ivy grabbed the coin. "You've done it again," exclaimed Elden. "You've completed all 4 quests. You helped the hedgehog learn about empathy. Now you have learned all you need to know to return to your world and fix the situations you are in today. Congratulations! I am so proud of you." Although they were sad to leave, Levi and Ivy thanked Elden for all he did for them. They also thanked the bees, the ants, the raccoons, the fox, the bunny, the falcon, the hedgehog, the chipmunk, and the turtle, because they knew they couldn't have learned all the valuable lessons they did if it hadn't been for their new garden friends. "I can't wait to see how you use all that you've learned here to help you back home," said Elden. "Good luck, and please know that we will all be cheering you on from the garden. You have all the tools you need to make your situation at school better. Use them to help yourself, and you will help others as well." "Thank you so much, Elden," exclaimed Levi and Ivy as they reached the gigantic iron gate that first led them into the Garden of Friends. They waved goodbye one last time before stepping back through into their normal world. Once back by the park, they turned around to see the hedgerow and the gate were both gone, taking Elden and all their garden friends away too. Knowing what they had to do and holding the 4 golden coins from their garden quest, Levi and Ivy felt courageous. They felt that they deserved respect and could get it by showing clarity in their words and their actions and addressing situations to help themselves and the other people involved. And in doing so, they would hopefully teach others about empathy and how they should always ask this one question before they act. How would I feel if this were happening to me? Ivy and Levi returned home for dinner, once again full of confidence and looking like the old Levi and Ivy that their parents remembered. They were ready to talk to those kids the next day at school, and no matter what came their way during those interactions, they knew Elden and their other garden friends had given them all the tools they needed to fix the problem. The next day at school, Levi and Ivy each approached the kids they had made them upset the day before. Using all they learned, they helped those kids to see how their words and actions were hurtful and made them feel bad. Both groups received the information the same way, surprised at how much of an impact they had on Levi and Ivy, and so sorry for ever making them feel bad in the first place. Levi and Ivy talked about it the whole way home, how the lessons they learned in the garden worked, and how they should really share what Elden taught them with other kids at school, hopefully creating an environment where everyone respects each other. So the very next day, Levi and Ivy asked their teacher if they could form a school club teaching the lessons of courage, respect, clarity, and empathy. Their teachers loved the idea, and that day, the Garden of Friends Club was born.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the story and learned a little something too.
And since we know everyone has their own story, we'd love to hear yours.
If you have an idea for a Lively Lewis story, leave a comment on our Apple Podcast review page with 5 stars, your idea, and your little one's name.
Then maybe our next adventure will be with you.
Until our next Storytime Hangout.
Thanks for listening. We can't wait to share another fun, Lively Lewis story with you.